1.6.29. Okay. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sargana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sargana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Anshakalpatarubhyasya Kripasamjit Vacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Vedanta Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Actually, I had okay, this is correct. सर्वशास्त्राब्धि पीयूष सर्ववेदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैकतिक प्रदा सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद् भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वान्तोदितादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद मन्यस्तार्क मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमस्तुते असाधु साधुतादाय नति निचोच्यताकर हानमंच कदाचिन्मां प्रेम्णाहृतकण्ठयस्फुरा. I'm going to change the network, so bear with me for a few seconds. Am I audible now?
Yes,
Am I
Prabhu.
audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. I'm on Geo. So today is from text 29 onwards up to 1.7.5, up to and including 1.7.5. Kalpanta idamadaya shayanem bhasutan vataha.
Please share the screen.
Okay. Kalpanta idamadaya shayanem bhasutan vataha shishayishor anupranam vivishentaraham vibho. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, lay down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all creative elements. And I also entered through his breathing. Idam trailokyam adaya upasamhritya udangvataha ekarnavasya ambhasi shayane Sri Narayane Shishayisho shayanam kartum ichhoho vibhoho brahmanaha antar madhyam anupranam vishwasena saha vivishe vishtoha. So the Supreme Lord, when he had dissolved the three worlds, so this is a reference to dissolution at the end of the three worlds, or higher forms of dissolution also, because in the higher forms of dissolution also different things are dissolved. But the three worlds here indicates it must be one of the daily or nightly dissolutions, nightly of Lord Brahma. So when Lord Narayana had dissolved the three worlds, and he was lying on the single ocean, Ekaranavasya Ambhasi, single ocean. Single ocean indicates that at the state of dissolution, it's all water, all liquid. So at that time, Lord Narayana wanted to sleep in that ocean. So at that time, Narada entered into the Lord. ततोऽवतीर्य विश्वात्मा देहम् आविश्य च अवाप वैष्णवीं निद्राम् एकीभूयाथ विष्णुना इति कौर्मोक्ते The Kurma Purana has a statement to this effect. So the Supreme Lord, he entered into his Vaishnavi Nidra, his Yogamayic Nidra. So all the Vishnu forms became one at this time. Sometimes instead of Shayane Ambhasi, some manuscripts have Swayane Ambhasi, which indicates that the Supreme Lord took shelter of himself. Narada is known as the son of Brahma, as Lord Krishna is known as the son of Vasudeva. The idea is that just as Krishna is not literally the son of Vasudeva, Narada is not literally the son of Brahma. He's a liberated soul. I mean, Narada is a liberated soul. The personality of Godhead and his liberated devotees like Narada appear in the material world by the same process. As it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, the birth and activities of the Lord are all transcendental. Therefore, according to authorized opinion, the birth of Narada as the son of Brahma is also a transcendental pastime. His appearance and disappearance are practically on the same level as those of the Lord. The Lord and his devotees are therefore simultaneously one and different as spiritual entities. They belong to the same category of transcendence. 30. Sahasra Yuga Paryante Uttayedam Sisrikshataha Marichi Mishra Rishaya Pranebhyoham Cha Jagire. After, what is this? 1,000, million, billion, 4,320 million solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord. And I also appeared along with them. The duration of a day in the life of Brahma is 1,000, million, billion, 4,320 million solar years. This is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita. And for this same period, Brahmaji rests at night in Yoganidra within the body of the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, the generator of Brahma. Thus, after the sleeping period of Brahma, when there is again creation by the will of the Lord through the agency of Brahma, all the great rishis again appear from different parts of the transcendental body, and Narada also appears. This means that Narada appears in the same transcendental body, just as a man awakes from sleep in the same body. Narada is eternally free to move in all parts of the transcendental and material creations of the Almighty. He appears and disappears in his own transcendental body, which is without distinction of body and soul, unlike conditioned beings. In other words, Narada became completely liberated. That is the point here. 31. Antarbahishya lokam strin paryamya skandita vrataha anugrahan mahavishnu ravighat gati kvachit. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. Sridhar Swami says, those who are engaged in karma, they do not get out of the universe. We have the adharmic souls. Adharmic souls, they only go down to hell. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in if I remember correctly, in Chaitanya Shikshamrita says that those who engage in vikarma, sinful activities of sense enjoyment, they go down, they go to hell. And those who engage in karma, pious material activities, they go up, they go to the heavenly planets. And then there are those who do not engage in sinful activities and they do not engage in pious activities also. If they manage to do that, then they get born as human beings. That is called akarma. So, but those who are engaged in pious activities, karma, they go up, but they cannot get out of the universe. That is the point. Those who go to Brahmaloka by means of tapas and so on, they do not go inside. But by Mahavishnu's blessings, because I am fixed in my vow, Akhandita Brahmacharya, unbroken Brahmacharya of 8 types, I go both inside and outside. At no point in time is my movement ever restricted. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 divisions of the material spheres, namely the Urdhvaloka, topmost planets, Madhyaloka, midway planets, and Adholoka, downward planets. Beyond the Urdhvaloka planets, that is to say, above the Brahmaloka. Now, here he gives another meaning. I think this meaning is coming from either Jiva Goswami or Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Beyond the Urdhvaloka planets, that is to say, above the Brahmaloka, are the material coverings of the universes, and above that is the spiritual sky, which is unlimited in expansion, containing unlimited self-illuminated Vaikuntha planets inhabited by God himself, along with his associates, who are all eternally liberated living entities. Narada Muni could enter all these planets in both the material and spiritual spheres without restriction, as much as the Almighty Lord is free to move personally in any part of his creation. In the material world, the living beings are influenced by the 3 material modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. But Sri Narada Muni is transcendental to all these material modes, and thus he can travel everywhere unrestricted. He is a liberated spaceman. The causeless mercy of Lord Vishnu is unparalleled, and such mercy is perceived by the devotees only by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, the devotees never fall down, but the materialists, that is, the fruitive workers and the speculative philosophers, do fall down, being forced by the respective modes of nature. The rishis, as above mentioned, cannot enter into the transcendental world like Narada. This fact is disclosed in the Narasimha Purana. Rishis like Marichi are authorities in fruitive work, and rishis like Sanaka and Sanatana are authorities in philosophical speculations, karma and jnana. But Sri Narada Muni is the prime authority for transcendental devotional service of the Lord. All the great authorities in the devotional service of the Lord follow in the footsteps of Narada Muni by following his orders in the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Therefore, all the devotees of the Lord are unhesitatingly qualified to enter into the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. So, another meaning is inside refers to antaha, refers to the realm controlled by the internal potency. Outside refers to the realm controlled by the external potency. 32. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Satus Kumar, they have a Vaishnava Sampradaya, so they are authorities in Jnana scriptures? Or?
No. They are always taken as representatives of Jnana because they came through that pathway. Okay. Now they are pure devotees, but they came through that pathway. They came through the pathway because they were authorities in that pathway.
One more question. As we have to go to sleep, as being conditioned by laws of nature, so Brahmaji also has to go to sleep, like for much more hours. Like, but Narada, after being liberated, when he went with Brahma, like it was he conditioned to go inside the womb? Like
No, he's unrestricted. That is the whole point. He's unrestricted. See, here itself it says, Avighatagati Uchit. At no point in time are there any restrictions for his entrance into any place.
But Brahmaji has to go to sleep.
Brahma has to go to sleep. Brahma has to go to sleep. He cannot avoid these things. It's a part of the post. You have to do these things. 32. Devadattam imam vinam swara brahma vibhushitam murchitva harikatham gayamanas charamyaham. And thus I travel, constantly singing the transcendental message of the glories of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called the veena, which is charged with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna. Why do you travel here and there? Anticipating this question, he says, on the order of the Lord, I'm traveling for the auspiciousness of all the worlds. He says this in 4 texts, beginning with the current text. The Supreme Lord had given me a musical instrument. The swaras are Nishadha, Rishabha, Gandhara, Shadja, Madhyama, Dhaivata, and Panchama. Sarigama, Padha, Ni. These are 7. These are referred to as Shabda Brahma also, because they can reveal Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So that musical instrument is capable of producing these spiritual sounds. Originally, everything is given to reveal the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then it is later used for materialistic purposes. So he uses it for singing. The musical stringed instrument called the veena, which was handed to Narada by Lord Sri Krishna, is described in the Linga Purana. And this is confirmed by Srila Jiva Goswami. This transcendental instrument is identical with Lord Sri Krishna and Narada because all of them are of the same transcendental category. Sound vibrated by the instrument cannot be material, and therefore the glories and pastimes which are broadcast by the instrument of Narada are also transcendental, without a tinge of material inebriety, without a tinge of material defects or material intoxication. The 7 singing meters called Sha, Shadja, Rir, Rishabha, Ga, Gandhar, Ma, Madhyama, Pa, Panchama, Dha, Dhaivata, and Ni, Nishada are also transcendental and specifically meant for transcendental songs. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Sri Narada Deva is always fulfilling his obligation to the Lord for his gift of the instrument, and thus he is always engaged in singing his transcendental glories and is therefore infallible in his exalted position. Following in the footsteps of Srila Narada Muni, a self-realized soul in the material world, also properly uses the sound meters, namely Sha, Re, Ga, Ma, etc., in the service of the Lord by constantly singing his glories. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.14, the Mahatmas or great souls have no business in life except singing the transcendental glories of the Lord. Originally, everything that's provided in the Vedic system is meant for helping us use our senses in the service of the Supreme Lord. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhuji, when you reading commentary on I think 31st verse, when you mentioned about unbroken devotional service, there was mention of unbroken practice of brahmacharya in 8 forms. So, how was unbroken devotional service linked to that in the commentary. If I'm not wrong, I understood.
In the mode of goodness, one observes unbroken brahmacharya. So all of us have to come to that point. We need to come to the point of unbroken brahmacharya. And brahmacharya itself, we will learn later on, is of 8 varieties. And complete brahmacharya in thinking, feeling, willing, acting. That's all. All of us have to come to that point.
Okay, bro.
Okay, 33. Prajayata swaviryani tirthapada priyashravah ahuta ivame shighram darshanam yati chetasi. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart, as if called for as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities. He also has his own motive behind singing the glories of the Lord. That motive is revealed in the current verse. The absolute personality of Godhead is not different from his transcendental name, form, pastimes, and the sound vibrations thereof. As soon as a pure devotee engages himself in the pure devotion service of hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, fame, and activities of the Lord, once he becomes visible to the transcendental eyes of the pure devotee by reflecting himself on the mirror of the heart by spiritual television. Therefore, a pure devotee who is related with the Lord in loving transcendental service can experience the presence of the Lord at every moment. It is a natural psychology in every individual case that a person likes to hear and enjoy his personal glories enumerated by others. That is a natural instinct, and the Lord, being also an individual personality like others, is not an exception to this psychology, because psychological characteristics visible in the individual souls are but reflections of the same psychology in the absolute Lord. The only difference is that the Lord is the greatest personality of all and absolute in all his affairs. If therefore the Lord is attracted by the pure devotees chanting of his glories, there is nothing astonishing. Since he is absolute, he can appear himself in the picture of his glorification, the two things being identical. Narada chants the glorification of the Lord not for his personal benefit, but because the glorifications are identical with the Lord. Narada Muni penetrates into the presence of the Lord by the transcendental chanting. 34. Etadhyatur chittanam matrasparshechaya muhu bhavasindu plavodrishto haricharyanu varnanam. This personally experienced by me, that those who are always full of cares and anxieties due to desiring contact of the senses with their objects can cross the ocean of nations on a most suitable boat. The constant chanting of the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. At this point, I just wanted to show you here. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grishyate. It is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Okay, so here, Prabhupada talks about the practice. Hearing of the transcendental activities of the Lord, of Lord Krishna, is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is appropriate diet for the suffering patient. Okay. By practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. In other words, in the present age, no one can observe, in general, the strict rules and regulations of the pathway of the Ashtanga Yoga system, and to move from karma to jnana to yoga. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotion service to the Lord. the first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. So if one hears about Krishna, means if one hears about the activities, transcendental activities of Lord Krishna, that itself will help. Then in addition to that, there has to be Vairagya. Vairagya means we give up activities which are detrimental. So there is always the positive and there is the negative also. We have to do something, we have to undo something. Paraprayojanamaha etadhiti. So his own motive behind glorifying the Lord is stated in the previous verse. And now his motive to benefit others is stated in the current verse. It is not just that the Shruti says that we should glorify Lord Hari and that it is good for everyone, it will purify everyone, it will save everyone from misery. Rather, directly and indirectly, I have experienced this. The symptom of a living being is that he cannot remain silent even for some time. He must be doing something, thinking of something or talking about something. Generally, the materialistic men think and discuss about subjects which satisfy their senses. But as these things are exercised under the influence of the external illusory energy, such sensual activities do not actually give them any satisfaction. On the contrary, they become full of cares and anxieties. This is called Maya, or what is not. That which cannot give them satisfaction is accepted as an object for satisfaction. So Narada Muni, by his personal experience, says that satisfaction for such frustrated beings engaged in sense gratification is to chant always the activities of the Lord. The point is that the subject matter only should be changed. No one can check the thinking activities of a living being, nor the feeling, willing, or working processes. But if one wants actual happiness, one must change the subject matter only. Instead of talking of the politics of a dying man, one might discuss the politics administered by the Lord himself. Instead of relishing activities of the cinema artists, one can turn his attention to the activities of the Lord with his eternal associates like the Gopis and Lakshmis. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, by his causeless mercy, descends to the earth and manifests activities almost on the line of the worldly man, but at the same time, extraordinary because he is Almighty. He does so for the benefit of all conditioned souls so that they can turn their attention to transcendence. By doing so, the conditioned souls will gradually be promoted to the transcendental position and easily cross the ocean of nescience, the source of all miseries. This is stated from personal experience by such an authority as Sri Narada Muni. And we can have the same experience also if we begin to follow in the footsteps of the great sage, the dearmost devotee of the Lord. So reading out, loud reading of books like Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Nectar of Devotion, or teachings of Lord Chaitanya, all of these deal with the activities of the Supreme Lord. This is very, very beneficial. Beneficial for one person who reads out loud and beneficial to all those who patiently hear. These things can be easily adopted. Very, very useful. 35. Yamadhivir yoga pathai kamalobha hato mukunda sevaya yadvat tathatmadha nashamyati. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for the satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Yama adibhi, by the process of practicing self-restraint. Adibhi indicates that there are several stages in Ashtanga Yoga. Kama Lobha. Kama refers to desires for sense satisfaction. Lobha refers to lust for satisfaction of the senses. More than what is required. Lobha refers to greed. That kind of lust. Very intense lust is called greed. . Etadevityuktam avadharanam anubhavena dradayati yamadhiviriti. So he had stated that this is what will purify everyone. This is the solution for their miseries. He had stated that. Now he reinforces it on the basis of his experience. If simply by serving Lord Mukunda, the mind can become tranquil directly, what to speak of by glorifying the transcendental qualities of the Lord that is implied here. Yoga aims at controlling the senses. By practice of yoga aims at controlling the senses because chitta vritti nirodha. Ashtanga yoga aims at controlling the chitta vritti, the mental propensities which are given vent through the senses. The practice of the mystic process of bodily exercise in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narada Muni recommends another method for controlling the senses, the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says that devotion service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system of artificially controlling the senses. In the service of Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendently engaged. Thus, there is no chance of their being engaged in sense satisfaction. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there is some opportunity for enjoyment, the serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many such instances in history, such as Vishwamitra Muni's falling victim to the beauty of Menaka. But Thakur Haridas was alert at midnight by the well-dressed Maya, and still she could not induce that great devotee to fall into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotion service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotion service of the Lord, without being tinged with fruity work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy. Certainly it cannot be mixed with adharma, is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotion service is transcendental in nature, and systems of yoga and jnana are subordinate to such a process. Subordinate means that they are meant to lead us to the point of pure devotional service. Pure devotional service is not meant to lead one to the pathway of yoga or jnana. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with a subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental, but it's called mixed devotional service. Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, will gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realization in the text. He'll develop means that he will clarify all of this. 26. Sarvam taddidam akhyatam yat prishtoham tvayanagha janma karma rahasyam me bhavatas chapatoshanam. O Vyasadeva, you are freed from all sins. Thus I have explained my birth and activities for self-realization as you asked. All this will be conducive for your personal satisfaction also. The process of devotional activities from the beginning to the stage of transcendence has all been duly explained to satisfy the inquiries of Vyasadeva. Narada has explained how the seeds of devotional service were sown by transcendental association and how they gradually developed by hearing the sages. Shraddha, seed of devotional service is Shraddha, transcendental association, that is Sadhu Sangha. There is a preliminary Sadhu Sangha before Shraddha. That is why it is said, Tatam Kripa Mahat Seva Shraddha. First of all, one receives the mercy of the sages, Sadhu Kripa. And then Mahat Seva. Then one serves the great saintly authorities. Then one receives Shraddha from them. We receive their Shraddha. And then Shraddha, Gurupadashraya, Bhajanesha Spriha, One develops a hankering to engage in different forms of bhajana kriya, then bhakti, then one engages in bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya begins with hearing. The result of such hearing is detachment from worldliness, so much so that even a small boy could receive the death news of his mother, who was his only caretaker, as a blessing of God. And at once he took the opportunity to search out the Lord. A sincere urge for having an interview with the Lord was also granted to him. Interview with the Lord means meeting the Lord. Was also granted to him, although it is not possible for anyone to see the Lord with mundane eyes. He also explained how, by execution of pure transcendental service, one can get rid of the fruitive action of accumulated work, and how he transformed his material body into a spiritual one. The spiritual body is alone able to enter into the transcendental realm of the Lord. No one but a pure devotee is eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. All the mysteries of transcendental realization are duly experienced by Narada Muni himself. And therefore, by hearing such an authority, one can have some idea of the results of devotional life, which are hardly delineated even in the original texts of the Vedas. In the Vedas and Upanishads, meaning in the Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads, there are only indirect hints to all this. Nothing is directly explained there. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all the Vedic trees of literatures. Nothing is directly explained there because they're meant to attract the attention of the conditioned souls. 37. Rutovacha. Evam sambhashya bhagavan narado vasavi suttam amantiya veenam ranayan yayav yadrichiko munihi. Suta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. Very, very nice purport here. So, having taken permission from Vyasadeva, Narada Muni left. The word Yadrichika indicates that Narada Muni did not have any specific mission or resolution to accomplish. So he just traveled. That degree of freedom he has, that he can decide to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. Every living being is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord, illusioned by the external energy. Everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. The conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth. And what to speak of moving from one planet to another? But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory, is free to move, not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. You can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling. No one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. 38. Aho devarshi dhanyoyam yat kirtim sharanga dhan vanaha gayan madhyan nidam tantriya ramayat yaturam jagat. All glory and success to Srila Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead. And so doing, he himself takes pleasure and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. Yes?
Prabhu, it was mentioned at the last, towards the end of 36th verse, purport, that indirect hints about bhakti in Vedas and Upanishads. It's little off track, the question. Day before yesterday, one was saying Srimati Radharani is also nowhere described in scriptures, like according to him. So I was not having any reference. So I
No,
did not
Radharani
find.
is described in several Puranas, Padma Purana, other places. She is by name. She is described.
He was saying that it was later added by Gaudiya. So I was not having any counter
No,
for
that's a
that.
very stupid idea.
Yes.
Radharani's name is found in the Puranas, and there are references to Radha even before the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
I was wondering, like,
in the various lines. In the various lines.
in all the four sampradayas.
Before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimbarka line definitely had it. If I remember correctly, Radharani is referenced in Vedanta Deshika's writings, at least in one place, Yadavarkyudaya. And anyways, there are descriptions in the Puranas. We know that. Gita Govinda is all about Radha and Krishna. Gita Govinda is written by Jayadev, who appeared at least 150 years before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there are other places also.
Like there was one compilation, like Prabhupada has compiled for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like he is Krishna himself in purpose. So I was wondering if we may need such compilation for him.
Now,
Radharani was.
this is so obvious, Radha is very much there in the Puranas. If the need arises, somebody should produce it. But there's no controversy about Radha's reality and existence. She's just not mentioned in Bhagavatam, Vishnu Purana by name. But in other places, she is mentioned. Bhagavatam also clearly indicates amongst the gopis, there was one particular gopi who was dearmost to Krishna. Okay. Harikatha Gayaka Narada Bhagyam Shlaghate. Sutta Goswami now appreciates and praises the fortune of Narada Muni, who is simply singing Harikatha. Narada Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. No one is happy here within the universe, and what is felt as happiness is Maya's illusion. The illusory energy of the Lord is so strong that even the hog who lives on filthy stool feels happy. No one can be truly happy within the material world. Srila Narada Muni, in order to enlighten the miserable inhabitants, wanders everywhere. His mission is to get them back home, back to God. That is the mission of all genuine devotees of the Lord, following the footsteps of that great sage. Chapter 7, the son of Drona punished. 1. Shaunaka Vacha. Nirgate Narade Sutta. Bhagavan Badarayana. Shrutavans tadabhipretam. Tatah kim akarod vibhuhu. Rishi Shaunaka asked, O Sutta, the great and transcendently powerful Vyasadeva heard everything from Sri Narada Muni. So after Narada's departure, what did Vyasadeva do? अथ भागवत श्रोतुर्जन्म वक्तुम परीक्षितः सुप्त बालवथा द्रोणेर दंड सप्तम उच्यते. Now, in order to describe the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, who was the hearer of the Bhagavatam, in this 7th chapter, the punishment of the son of Drona is described because he had killed 7 young persons, 7 boys, while they were asleep. In this chapter, the clue for describing Srimad Bhagavatam is picked up as Maharaj Parikshit is miraculously saved in the womb of his mother. This was caused by Drauni Ashwathama, Acharya Drona's son, who killed the 5 sons of Draupadi while they were asleep, for which he was punished by Arjuna. Before commencing the great epic Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Vyasadeva realized the whole truth by trance and devotion. 2. Suto Vacha. Brahmanadyam Saraswatyam Ashramah Paschime Tate Shamyaprasa iti proktar Rishinam Satravardhanaha. The Suta said, on the western bank of the river Saraswati, which is intimately related with the Vedas, there is a cottage for meditation at Shamyaprasa, which enlivens the transcendental activities of the sages. So Vyasadeva, he had heard about he had heard the instructions of Narada Muni. After hearing, what did he do? For spiritual advancement of knowledge, a suitable place and atmosphere are definitely required. The place on the western bank of the Saraswati is especially suitable for this purpose. And there is the ashram of Vyasadeva at Shamyaprasa. Srila Vyasadeva was a householder, yet his residential place is called an ashrama. An ashrama is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. I'll read that again. An ashrama is a place where spiritual culture is always foremost. It does not matter whether the place belongs to a householder or a mendicant. The whole Varnashrama system is so designed that each and every status of life is called an ashrama. This means that spiritual culture is the common factor for all. The brahmacharis, the grihasthas, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis all belong to the same mission of life, namely realization of the Supreme. Therefore, none of them are less important as far as spiritual culture is concerned. The difference is a matter of formality on the strength of renunciation. The sannyasis are held in high estimation on the strength of practical renunciation. 3. Tasmin swashrame vyaso badari shandamandite asino upasprishya pranidadhyau manaswayam. Wait. In that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. This is the correct spelling of Shanda. Is there an alternative spelling? So Vyasadeva fixed his mind. Why did he do that? Because Narada Muni had instructed him, samadhina anusmaratad vicheshtitam. Through trance, through samadhi, continuously meditate upon the activities of Lord Hari, Lord Krishna. In other words, Vyasadeva engaged in such dhyana. Wanted to do that. Under the instructions of the spiritual master Srila Narada Muni, Vyasadeva concentrated his mind in the transcendental place of meditation. 4. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male apashyat purusham purnam mayam chita tapashrayam. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotion service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. So he ensured that his mind was not shaking, it was fixed. And the reason for that was because he had engaged in spotless bhakti yoga. So he saw the Supreme Lord. In some readings, instead of Purnam, Purvam is found, which indicates the primordial person. So he saw the primordial person, the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the reading Purnam is found. And instead of Apashrayam, Upashrayam seems to be Sridhar Swami's reading. But the meaning is the same. He saw Maya sheltered by the Lord. Maya was under the control of the Lord. So these 4 verses, 4, 5, 6, 7, deal with Vyasadev's Samadhi. And these are very, very important. Srila Jiva Goswami has subjected them to a critical analysis, a scrutinizing analysis, detailed analysis, because what Vyasadeva saw is what he described. So if what he saw was undifferentiated non-duality, then that is the actual meaning or purport of Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, he analyzes this in great detail. He points out that he did not see undifferentiated non-duality. Perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotion service. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth personality of Godhead only by the process of devotion service, and one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. Imperfect realization of the absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Sri Narada advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. He did not tell him to meditate on the Brahman effulgence and the undifferentiated absolute. Srila Vyasadeva did not take notice of the effulgence of Brahman because that is not absolute vision. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.19, Vasudeva Sarvamati. In the Upanishads also, it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayena Patrena veil of impersonal Brahman. And that when this curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. The Absolute is mentioned here as the Purusha or person. Apashyat Purusham Purnam. Purusham. He saw the person. So if he saw Bhagavan, what happened to Brahman? Why he did not see Brahman? That is because that is included. It is included. When you see the moon, Srila Jiva Goswami mentions this argument. When you see the moon with moon's effulgence, the moonlight. Nobody says, oh, I saw the moon and I saw moonlight. Because you cannot have moonlight without the moon. That is understood. The absolute personality of Godhead is mentioned in so many Vedic literatures, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the Purusha is confirmed as the eternal and original person. Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Paitram Paramam Bhavan, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adidevam, Ajam Vibhum. The absolute personality of Godhead is the perfect person. Purusham Purnam. The Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of our activities. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apashrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. The internal potency or superior energy is also called Maya, but it is spiritual Maya or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. Mayam yudasya chitchaktya kaivalye sthita atmani. First canto, 7th chapter. And even those who are Atmaram or fixed in trance take shelter of this Maya or internal energy. Mahatmanastu Mampartha Daivim Prakritim Ashrita. Devotion, service, or Bhakti Yoga is a function of the internal energy. Bhakti Yogena, Sachidananda Ikarase Bhakti Yoge Tishtati. The Gopalatapani Upanishad says Bhakti Yoga is the platform of Sachidananda, the pure platform of Sachidananda. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy, just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of spiritual light. Such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of God in Sri Krishna. Brahmano hi pratishtha aham. The Parama Purusha or the Purna Purusha cannot be anyone except Sri Krishna himself, as will be explained in the later shlokas. 5. Yaya sammohito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropi manute nartham tatkritam chabhi padyate. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So, because of this external energy, see, the external energy was already referred to here. The external energy or Maya is completely under the control of the Purna Purusha, the absolute personality of Godhead. But the Jiva is bewildered by that Maya. So note that the Purna Purusha is not bewildered by Maya. Therefore, it is stated, due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Yishamaya kritam che jivanam samsritim apashyat. And then he saw material material existence as experienced by the jivas, not jiva in plural. And this experience is caused by the Maya of the Lord. So he is bewildered by this Maya, he meaning the Jiva. We are talking about one Jiva as a representative of all the other Jivas, conditions also. So bewildered, completely bewildered by this Maya, which means that his Swarupa, his original nature, is covered up and he is thrown into material existence. So therefore, we talk about two functions of material Maya. Avaranatmika, Prakshepatmika. Paropi, Gunatrayat Vyatriktopi. Even though the living entities are above the three modes of material nature. Tat kritam trigunatva abhimana kritam anartham cha kartatva adhikam prapnoti. The living entities, the Jivatma, they attain anartha, the unwanted calamity of thinking that they are the independent doers and so on, which is due to identification of oneself as a product of the three modes of material nature, which means the products of the three modes of material nature are the subtle bodies and the gross bodies. So the conditioned souls, when they identify themselves with the subtle bodies or gross bodies, that is that. The root cause of suffering by the materialistic living beings is pointed out with the remedial measures which are to be undertaken and also the ultimate perfection to be gained. So in these three verses, 5, 6, 7, this is what is pointed out. First, the root cause of suffering is pointed out. And then remedial measures will come up. And ultimate perfection to be gained will also be brought out. All this is mentioned in this particular verse. All of this is indicated here. I think that's an editorial mistake. In these particular verses, the living being is by constitution transcendental to material engagement, but he is now imprisoned by the external energy, and therefore he thinks himself one of the material products. And due to this unholy contact, the pure spiritual entity suffers material miseries under the modes of material nature. The living entity misunderstands himself to be a material product. This means that the present perverted way of thinking, feeling, and willing under material conditions is not natural for him, but he has his normal way of thinking, feeling, and willing. All of this is coming from Jiva Goswami. Paropi manute, paraha api. Even in spite of being transcendental, the Jiva takes it for granted. Manute takes it for granted means he thinks, he considers. He thinks and he considers indicates that the transcendental Jivatma is capable of thinking and consideration. The living being in his original state is not without thinking, willing, and feeling power. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the actual knowledge of the conditioned soul is now covered by nescience. Thus, the theory that a living being is absolute impersonal Brahman is refuted here. This cannot be because the living entity has its own way of thinking in its original unconditional state also. The present conditional state is due to the influence of the external energy, which means that the illusory energy takes the initiative while the Supreme Lord is aloof. Yaya sammohitaha. By whom? By which Maya, the Jiva, is illusioned. And the Jiva himself, Jiva here itself refers to the living entities in plural, all the living entities of this world, conditioned souls. So the conditioned souls are illusioned by Maya. Why Maya? Why does Vyasadeva write like this? Why did he not say Yena sammohitaha, that the living entities were illusioned by the Supreme Lord, Purna Purusha? Because it is Maya who takes the initiative. It is not the Supreme Lord who takes the initiative. While the Supreme Lord is aloof, the Lord does not desire that a living being be illusioned by the external energy. The external energy is aware of this fact, but still she accepts a thankless task of keeping the forgetful soul under illusion by her bewildering influence. The Lord does not interfere with the task of the illusory energy, because such performances of the illusory energy are also necessary for reformation of the conditioned soul. An affectionate father does not like his children to be chastised by another agent, yet he puts his disobedient children under the custody of a severe man just to bring them to order. But the all-affectionate Almighty Father at the same time desires relief for the conditioned soul, relief from the clutches of the illusory energy. The king puts the disobedient citizens within the walls of the jail, but sometimes the king, desiring the prisoner's relief, personally goes there and pleads for reformation. And when the prisoners reform, they are set free. Similarly, the Supreme Lord descends from his kingdom to the kingdom of the illusory energy and personally gives relief in the form of the Bhagavad Gita, wherein he personally suggests that although the ways of the illusory energy are very stiff to overcome, one who surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord is set free by the order of the Supreme. Daivi Shesha Gunamahi Mamamaya Duratyaya Mamevaye Prapadyante Mayametam Tarantite. This surrendering process is the remedial measure for getting relief from the bewildering ways of the illusory energy. The surrendering process is completed by the influence of association. The Lord has suggested, therefore, that by the influence of the speeches of saintly persons who have actually realized the Supreme, men are engaged in his transcendental loving service. Satam prasangan mamavirya samvido bhavanti hritkarana rasayana katha. The conditioned soul gets a taste for hearing about the Lord, and by such hearing only, he is gradually elevated to the platform of respect, devotion, and attachment for the Lord. Shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishyati. The whole thing is completed by the surrendering process. Herein also, the same suggestion is made by the Lord in his incarnation of Vyasadeva. This means that the conditioned souls are being reclaimed by the Lord both ways, namely by the process of punishment by the external energy of the Lord and by himself as the spiritual master within and without. Within the heart of every living being, the Lord himself as the super soul Paramatma becomes the spiritual master, and from without means outside, externally, he becomes the spiritual master in the shape of scriptures, saints, and the initiator spiritual master. This is still more explicitly explained in the next shloka. Now, Jiva Goswami then takes up for consideration the question. It says, illusion by Maya. Illusion by Maya, the living entity, thinks of himself as a material product. But Maya is just dead matter. How can you talk about Maya as if Maya is a person? But actually the illusory energy is superintended by a person. That is a supervisor. That is a personal supervisor who is referred to as Maya. Personal superintendence of the illusory energy is confirmed in the Vedas, the Kena Upanishad, in relation to the demigod's controlling power. When there was a discussion about the limited controlling power of the demigods, at that time, Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva, came and explained to the Devas that actually there is the Supreme Brahman, the great being, by whose mercy you have various abilities to control different aspects of this universe. So that is an episode that comes in the Kena Upanishad. So from that we understand that Uma is a person. She is controlling Maya. She is exhibiting the effects of Maya. That ultimately the illusory energy has a presiding deity, which is Uma. Herein also it is clearly stated that the living entity is controlled by the external energy in a personal capacity. Is controlled by the external energy by the person who's controlling that external energy, the person who's superintending that external energy. The living being, thus subject to the control of the external energy, is differently situated. It is clear, however, from the present statement of the Bhagavatam that the same external energy is situated in the inferior position before the personality of Godhead or the perfect being. If you read the current statement along with the statement in the second canto, in which Lord Brahma says that Maya is herself ashamed of coming before the Lord, then we understand this, that she is inferior. Also, the previous verse had stated, Mayam Chatad Apashrayam. She was away and she was under the control of the Lord. The perfect being or the Lord cannot even be approached by the illusory energy, who can only work on the living entities. Here the perfect being refers to the Lord. Purnam Purusham. Therefore, it is sheer imagination that the Supreme Lord is illusioned by the illusory energy and thus becomes a living being. If the living being is the Jivatma. If the living being and the Lord were in the same category, then it would have been quite possible for Vyasadeva to see it. And there would have been no question of material distress on the part of the illusion being, for the Supreme Being is fully cognizant. So there are so many unscrupulous imaginations on the part of the monist to endeavor to put both the Lord and the living being in the same category. And the Lord and the living beings being the same, then Srila Shukadeva Goswami would not have taken the trouble to describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, for they would all be manifestations of the illusory energy. Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum, is the summum bonum remedy. It is the remedy of the highest variety. It is the all good absolute remedy for suffering humanity in the clutches of Maya. He will just state it now. In another two verses, Vyasadeva will state it. Srila Vyasadeva, therefore, first of all, diagnosed the actual disease of the conditioned souls. That is, their being illusioned by the external energy. He also saw the perfect supreme being from whom the illusory energy is far removed. Apashrayam, apa means away. So she was sheltered by the Lord, but she was far away also. Although he saw both the diseased conditioned souls and also the cause of the disease. And the remedial measures are suggested in the next verse. Both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living beings are undoubtedly qualitatively one, but the Lord is the controller of the illusory energy, whereas the living entity is controlled by the illusory energy. Thus, the Lord and the living beings are simultaneously one and different. Another point is distinct herein, that eternal relation between the Lord and the living being is transcendental. Otherwise, the Lord would not have taken the trouble to reclaim the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. In the same way, the living entity is also required to revive his natural love and affection for the Lord. And that is the highest perfection of the living entity. Srimad Bhagavatam treats the conditioned soul with an aim to that goal of life. I will now take up the Acharya's explanation to these verses. Quite good, actually. I have to take up from text 18 of the 6th chapter. Let's see how much time I get. What is this? Why did I open this? Okay, meanwhile, any questions?
Prabhu, may I ask something?
Sorry?
Like while going through these purports, I was feeling that I've read them before, reading them again, and while reading, it looks like okay, this is so obvious. I have to do this, and I have to share this, but neither I am able to do it as it is, nor am I able to share them as it is with that intensity as Prabhupada is writing in the purport. So I was wondering how will this be able possible? Because when we read it, uh, it takes us in different direction only. That actually we are supposed to do it, but I am unable to do it. I am not doing it, and I am not able to share it also with others in the same way like Prabhupada is doing in the same intensity.
Yes, your condition souls. It's a fact. When Narada Muni had heard, when he was sitting under the tree and he heard the voice of the Lord, uh, we should understand that he heard the sweetness of the Lord's speech, which further indicates that Narada heard uh, using his transcendental ears. He's also given a point here that because Narada Muni is a devotee on the Vidhi Marga, not on the Raga Marga, he experienced the sweetness of the Supreme Lord's fragrance, beauty, and sweet speech in the sadhaka body. For everyone else, these sweetnesses are experienced only in the spiritual body, in the future. Future means after one gives up the body. Narada was in the status of love of God at that time. That is because in the status of love of God, one is never ever, one never has the conception that I've had enough of serving the Lord. The Guru Goswami points out in his commentary to 22 that Narada Muni's contamination is regarding the attraction to the forest. So Narada Muni was through that experience to teach us that we should not be attracted to that also. Nothing should become an obstacle between us and the Supreme Lord. The fact that the Supreme Lord shows himself to the devotee in sadhaka body who has awakened love for him once and only once, that indicates that this is the Lord's rule. Love of Godhead in the body of a sadhaka. That means we are still in our subtle body and gross body. Love of Godhead is like a infant girl, and then through eagerness due to feelings of separation from the Lord, then she grows up very nicely. And in the Siddha Deha, when one attains a spiritual body, he becomes youthful. In text 26, the word is used along with the word Ishvara. Ishvara means the capable Lord. The capable Lord indicates that he had chosen to bestow his benediction of love of God. He had chosen to give the benediction of love of God in Narada Muni. Even though I was just the son of a maidservant, that is because he is a capable Lord. He can do whatever he wants. Then he waited. Narada Muni waited. In text 27, it says that he was waiting for the time when he can leave this body and attain the association of the Lord. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that these were his thoughts. When will that time come when I will become his associate? Who else is more wretched than me? In other words, he never had an attitude of pride or jealousy. So at the right time, he left his body. What is that right time? The right time is when his prarabdha karma was destroyed. The body that was given by the Supreme Lord to Narada Muni, that is a portion of the Supreme Lord's own expansion. And it is understood that when he got out of the body of the five gross elements, he also got out of his linga sharira, his subtle body. That also got dissolved. When one is fixed in the Supreme Lord to such an extent, then one's prarabdha karma is also destroyed. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur points out that for a person who has awakened his love of Godhead, there is no prarabdha karma. Because even in the status of pure sadhana bhakti, it is destroyed. This will be stated while discussing Priyavrata. There are some authorities who say that when one comes in touch with bhakti, or bhakti, then just like when one touches a sparshamani, a touchstone, things automatically become gold. The metal that touches touchstone automatically becomes gold. So like that, that very material body with which one executes prema bhakti itself becomes beyond, becomes transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Or we see that that has happened in Dhruva Maharaj and so on. So getting rid of the three modes of material nature is what is referred to as getting rid of the body. Some authorities say this. And even in the 10th canto, 29th chapter, this point is brought out there. When the devotees give up their bodies, the Supreme Lord sees that. This is referred to in the Namashtaka of Sri Rupa Goswami. The Brahma Sakshat Kriti Nishtayati Vinashamayati Virana Bhogai Paiti Namas Purnena Tate Prarabdha Karmiti Virauti Veda. The Veda very loudly says that as soon as the holy name arises, then Prarabdha Karma is destroyed. What kind of Prarabdha Karma? The Prarabdha Karma which cannot be destroyed even by experience, unless one experiences. And even if the person is directly experiencing the impersonal Brahman, unless he experiences the effect of Prarabdha Karma, it won't be exhausted. But when the holy name arises, then the Veda loudly says that Prarabdha Karma is destroyed. Okay, I'll stop with that. That's all interesting discussions. I could just what I'll do is I'll on here. Question from that. Okay, that's Achyutanam.
Prabhuji, is there any compilation of names of our Vedic scriptures, like name of Puran and I was asking because sometimes people just randomly pick out something and they say it is mentioned in this. One person said Kalika Puran. So because I don't know the name only, then I was supposed to keep that. I don't know what is this Kalika Puran, whether it is there or not in the first place. So
I think Prabhupada quotes it somewhere. I think I've heard it somewhere. There are Puranas, there are 18 major Puranas, there are 18 minor Puranas. There is a list. I have seen the list in Bhagavatam of the major Puranas. And in Garuda Purana, 3rd canto, I have seen a list of the minor Puranas, 18 minor Puranas.
So what is the difference? Do major Puranas conclusion supersede the conclusions from minor Puranas? Or like how they are major and minor?
They contain more discussions about the 10 subject matters. And the ones which contain less discussion about the 10 subject matters. I think they discuss only about 5 subject matters, the minor ones.
The 10 subject matters Bhagavatam? Starting.
Yeah, they are the characteristics of a Purana.
Okay. In every Purana, this discussion will be there, more or less.
Major Puranas, as far as I know.
Okay. It's not only Bhagavatam, but everything.
No, Bhagavatam describes everything in terms of the shelter. As far as I understand, the 10 characteristics are characteristics of the major Puranas. If I'm wrong, I'll point out that.
Okay, bro.
But it is in terms of the 5 and 10. This I remember. It is in terms of the characteristics. That much I know. Now, I do not know if the minor Puranas deal only with lesser than 5 of the 5 characteristics, and that the major Puranas deal with 5, and that Bhagavatam deals with 10. I doubt it. From what I can remember, The 10 are found in the major Puranas and 5 are found in the minor Puranas. I will need to check it. If you want me to confirm it, then you should ask this in the form of a question in the Telegram group so that I can check it.
Okay.
Somapati Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Oh, we have one new devotee. Recently he came. So he has some diabetes issue. So then we introduced chanting and he started chanting. So he said after doing chanting, he felt somewhat his disease is reducing, something like that. So after that he said that initially while he was doing chanting, for 1 month at least he was doing, and he's saying he was crying. So after some days, he said, after 1 month, he said, Prabhuji, now I am doing chanting, but that attraction for me, chanting is reducing. Why? He's asking. So my question is that how these things happen to the new people at the initial level only? Sometimes they cry.
Prabhupada was asked, whenever I chant, I see a red light. And then Prabhupada said, please continue chanting and the red light will go away. So people go through all kinds of experiences. They might have taken drugs. All kinds of things might be happening. Possible. Not that one does not experience happiness. It might come. It's only a reflection. I thought there was another question.
Yes, so you, in one purport, we were reading, you told something about Vidhi about Naradji, Vidhi and the experience of sweetness of the Lord in this body only. So what what it was, I can get through. So
there is Vidhi Marga and Raga Marga. In Raga Marga, one attains an experience of the sweetness of the features of the Lord after he leaves this body. But in Vidhi Marga, then he experiences that in this body itself. Okay, we'll stop with that. Vanchakalpatarvyasya vipasindukhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.